Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
I actually have nothing. I don't even know how you do it every week. Shut up, Evan.
You shut up.
Garbage friend. I just got done telling these guys that like the 3.5 hour drive back we had from camping turned into like a 5.5 hour drive. I'm wiped. We went through like a devastating like thunder and lightning storm this morning and just like completely gassed. I'm like, all right, Evan, do you mind opening? And he just flat out goes, nah. Doesn't even look at the camera, just goes, nah.
I know my strengths, and opening is certainly not one of them.
I beg to differ. Your opens have been good in the past.
That's when I'm inspired. But, you know, Sunday night at 9:20 p.m., there's not a whole lot of creativity and inspiration.
You really do come and go with the Red Wings season, eh? Like, anytime there's hope or excitement, you are, like, on it. You're, like, pacing ahead of Brad and I. Like, you're coming with your... The one time you came with your laptop, I'll never forget.
Yeah, was that the mock draft we did?
Yeah,
that was our
big mock draft.
Our final mock draft going into the last draft, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, then how could I draft Anton Lundell and Seth Jarvis twice? Who knew preparation was the key?
Well, jury's out on that one. Brad, what are you doing with your mustache, man?
I don't know. I was trying
to do that again. No, do that again.
I was screwing it with it again, and I realized it actually kind of does flare out a bit.
Brad, you can do handlebars. Do the other side and leave it for the video. You have to do it.
I play with it too much to be able to leave it for the whole video.
It's amazing.
This is so bad. I look like Wario.
Okay, if you guys don't watch on YouTube, this is how we're going to goad you into subscribing. Go to youtube.com/wingedwheelpodcast.
Man, that's awful.
Hit subscribe and then look at Brad's stupid mustache like a few minutes into this episode. If that's not worth your subscription, nothing is.
Oh my god, I can't believe it's actually long enough to be able to do this, even a little bit.
I swear I can have absolutely zero energy. I can be in a coma coming into this episode, and you guys will find a way to give it life.
This is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Welcome to the Wind Wheel Podcast. Back in Civilization, I'm Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad, literally Wario Crisco.
And I got nothing. I'm Evan.
Oh no, I'm the monopoly.
It's just your name, man.
Yep. That's it today.
On this episode of the podcast, and I promise you, I definitely did not scramble to catch up in hockey over the past, 35 minutes. We're going to be talking about the actual NHL playoffs. I am so happy I don't have to say play-ins or qualifying round or any of that crap anymore. A mild amount of Red Wings news this week before we jump into our prospect profile, which is one of the big ones. It's his meaty one, so I'm sure... I don't know what we've named this episode yet, but I'm sure it'll be something related. But just in case it's not, it'll be worth listening to. Well, I mean, I hope so. You've come this far. So
out already.
Yeah, very quickly. I didn't know if I'd be back for this episode. So we went on a Friday night, Saturday night, so 2-night, 3-day trip up in Algonquin Park, and like great place to be. Loved it. It was our first time taking the new canoe out with the dog. A lot of fun. After the first night, a couple of our friends actually had to leave early. They were trying hammock camping and it just got way colder than we had assumed. So long story short, they just ducked out and started paddling back. So it was Mel and I for the second night, just us on the site, which was fine. Like it was just another like have dinner, wrap up, wake up in the morning and head out. And then we messaged our friends. We had like barely a bar of signal. We messaged our friends and said, hey, like, let us know what the weather forecast is. Cause if it's going to rain like Sunday afternoon, like I said, it we'll like blast out right in the morning. Cause between the paddles and the portages, it'd be about 2 hours back to where we parked the car. And, we got like one message back amongst like many that were sent. And the only message back instead of any of the useful information that Mel's freaking phone picked up was, well, hope the weatherman's wrong. Haha. And I was like, So I'm like, we packed up everything, like, hung the bear bags, did all that. I'm laying in the tent, like wide awake the whole night. I see heat lightning until like 4 a.m. And then like at 6, just the most devastating, downpour and then like cracks of thunder and lightning. And you hear thunder and lightning in the like cities, and it's like, yeah, it's loud. But when it's like over a national park or provincial park, like you hear it hit and you hear it crack and break open trees and they're falling down, and like you feel the earth shake, and like you're counting out the seconds. You're like, that was like 10 miles away. Like that wasn't even close. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, what am I worried about? What are the chances of getting struck by lightning? Like 1 in a million? And then I'm like, I mean, it's a lot higher if I'm in like a national park with a lot of, lightning rods that are really tall trees. Long story short, unfortunately for some of you, I did survive. We did make it back. And the worst part of my day, believe it or not, despite the weather, was the traffic. So,
Yes. No one enjoys that Toronto 400 traffic.
oh my God, man. The moment you hit Toronto, it's just jackass after jackass. Like, I had a guy weaving in traffic in a RAV4. Loved the vehicle. Excellent vehicle. You do not weave in a RAV4. I'm sorry.
I'd drive like that too if I was a Leaf fan.
Honestly,
You've got nothing left to live for.
I said that out loud. I was like, those are just Leafs fans. Like, they're either trying to, make the most out of whatever life they have left in them, or they're just trying to die. One of the two.
Absolutely.
There was one of them like riding my ass, and I was like, I have a canoe on the top of the car. Like, who's gonna win this one? It's me.
Just snip off the
Please don't. They're very expensive.
yeah. I don't know about canoes, but I assume they are.
That's my diatribe. I'll try not to bore you with any more of that. Evan, you do not get any golf time this episode. I'm sorry. I stole all of the recreational sport talk.
That's okay.
Okay. The playoffs. Before we start to review the series, why don't we talk a little bit about like our predictions and brackets? And it's worth calling out. I mean, we boast about our highs. We did not do so hot, specifically in the qualifying round predictions. I think I was the worst. I think I got 3 out of 8, and you guys got 4.
I had 3.
That means I got 2. Shit.
I went 3 for 8 and felt grateful to do that well.
That is, and it was a wild one for sure. There was like 3 series that were just like pretty decent upsets, but still, 2 for 8's rough. 2 for 8 might be my worst bracket performance in a long time.
Here's the sad thing. 2 of the 3 I got right were upsets. I had Columbus in Arizona. Oops.
Wow.
Yeah. Let me pull up our actual list here. It's not pretty. So Evan, you got Columbus right, you got Vancouver right, and you got the Islanders right. You incorrectly predicted the Jets, the Predators, the Penguins, the Oilers, and the Rangers to move on. Brad, you also got Columbus and Vancouver, but your third one was Arizona. I got Vancouver and the Islanders right, and I got everyone else wrong.
Nice.
Miserable.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I know I've got one wrong this round already, so I'm doing terrific.
That's what we get for trying to make predictions on a baddie play-in. So I made my bracket and I submitted it for people to look at on Twitter. I'm not sure if you guys put out your brackets, but we'll talk a little bit about who we have for the playoffs. We will make some kind of like game tournament system for the patrons in later rounds of the playoffs. Things just went a little fast for the first round here. So my bracket is, I don't know. I don't think it's too out of this world. In the West, I have Vegas over Chicago. Mind you, I tweeted this so you guys can see that I'm not lying. Evan and Brad could perfectly well be lying. So hold them to the coals if you'd like.
Oh, no. I'm about to break to you that I have Washington, so.
I have Vegas over Chicago in 5 games. I have Colorado over Arizona in 6 games. I have Dallas over Calgary in 7. I have St. Louis over Vancouver in 7. In the East, I have Philly over Montreal in 6. Tampa Bay over Columbus in 5. I have the Islanders over Washington in 6. And then I have Carolina over Boston. I had a sweep because I'm a jerk. And then into the conference finals, I had Vegas and Colorado versus, and then Philly and Tampa Bay, with a final of Colorado, Philadelphia, with the eventual champion, Gritty, the Philadelphia Flyers.
Neat.
Yeah. Who's going next?
I'll go. Starting in the West, I had Colorado and Vegas both winning their series in a gentleman's sweep. So to say I had them both in 5. I had Vancouver over St. Louis in 7. And I had Dallas over Calgary also in 7. That was 4, right? Yeah. In the East, I had Washington over the Islanders in 7. Still possible. Just want that on the record. It is still possible, as unlikely as it will be. I had Boston over Carolina in 7 because my life cannot contain any happiness. I had Tampa over Columbus in 7 because, I mean, they have to eventually, right? Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I had Philly over Montreal in 5.
And then who did you have in your conference finals?
I had Colorado taking out Vegas, and I had Tampa taking out Boston.
Yeah, that's like going, oh, okay. And then your cup winner?
Colorado.
You couldn't go Tampa, huh? You don't think that this is their year?
No. I pick Tampa every year, and they let me down every year. So I'm going to put them in the finals because they're still gross. But McKinnon.
Yeah. Evan, I'm assuming you're doing yours on the fly here. Remember that it reseeds, so it's not a perfect bracket. Can we talk about how beautiful it is that it reseeds now again?
It's not a bracket.
No. Like, it's a bracket, but it's not really a bracket. I missed reseeding so much. I wish that of all the things that they can carry over from the COVID playoffs into the real playoffs whenever those happen again, that reseeding is what I want to stick.
Oh, well, I legit am looking at a bracket, so...
Well, do your
You'll have
best.
to correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
So I originally said the Knights were going to win the Stanley Cup, so obviously they have to beat Chicago, and I had that in 5. I think that is the series 3-1.
Yes, 3-1.
Yeah, so I'm pretty close. Avalanche over Coyotes in 6. I can't remember how that one's going. It feels like there's too much hockey. I watch hockey all day, every day, and then I don't remember what happened.
Colorado's winning 2-1 in that series right now.
I said Winnipeg was going to beat the Flames, so I think I had Stars in 6 or 7. I'll say 6. I don't remember what I put. I'm just looking at a blank bracket, but I did one before. I had Blues in 6. Whoops. Heading to the other side, I had Flyers over Canadians in 5. What's that one? 2-1.
2-1 Philly, I believe, right?
Yep. Okay, we're still
1-1
ahead.
depending on how tonight's game goes, because Montreal absolutely donkey kicked Philly last game somehow.
Yes, that's right. I did watch a little bit of that.
Philly is up 1-0 halfway through the game.
Okay.
Okay, that's a good start. Lightning over Blue Jackets in 6. Capitals over Islanders in 7.
Yikes.
Holding
Could
on.
happen.
Could happen.
Could
And Bruins over Hurricanes in 7.
And then who do you have in your conference finals?
Conference
Vegas,
finals
obviously.
would be Vegas and the Avalanche. And
All right.
does that work? Can that work? Yep.
Yep.
Because they're both 1-2, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so Knights over the Avalanche in 6. I don't even like that, but I have to go with it since I said Vegas wins. On the other side, I like the Flyers. And that was about it. Flyers and Lightning. But I think
Flyers.
I think the Flyers are going to win that in 6 as well.
So you have a Vegas Philly final with Vegas taking it.
Vegas takes it in 7.
So the social media icon in Gritty versus the most hot and cold social media team with Vegas.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't like any of those picks, so
All right. Well, those are on the record now. So when we inevitably go like 1-for-8 again, make sure you make fun of us for it. But these series,
I was going to say, out of the 2 series where a team has 3 wins, I'm 50-50 right now. So there we go.
Here's the thing about Montreal. So if Montreal takes Philly, who's one of the strongest teams in the playoffs right now, to 7, and let's say they lose, is that worth it for the fans?
For Montreal or for Philly?
For Montreal fans,
no.
For them, they miss out on Lafreniere. They
no.
What if they win the round? What if they lose in the second round?
No, they have to win the cup.
You don't think they're a little bit happy?
Oh, they're gonna have fun, but again, I know I'm oversimplifying this, and it's hard to quantify the happiness like the deeper a team goes into the playoffs. But the cold reality of it is, you want Alexis Lafreniere to win the Stanley Cup. So if you do not win the Stanley Cup, you wasted a chance at Alexis Lafreniere. And I know that's not going to be a popular opinion, and I know that's not the romantic opinion about hockey, but that's hard facts. You win the cup or the season was a waste. And if you're a bad team who had the option to get a franchise-changing player and you didn't get that chance, it's doubly wasted.
My thing is, let's say they go on this insane ride. They knock off Philly. They knock off another surprise upset in the second round. If this is a conference final team, I don't know. I think that's a hell of a run.
That's a hell of a run, and it'll be super fun for 6 weeks max? And how many teams in NHL history have been fooled into thinking they're an elite team because they went on a stupid run and then the wheels just fell right off shortly after? I know the 2017 Senators come to mind, but
they made the mistake of trading away all their best players. I think
that didn't help at all. Their owners nuts. But who is it? I think this happened to Montreal already too. Back when they went on that run to the conference finals against the Rangers. And then they were picking third overall a couple years later. It's an aberration. Any team can get hot for a few weeks. Let's not forget, it was just last season the Detroit Red Wings rattled off a 10-game point streak in March. Hockey's fluky. I wish again, this is just my idiocy of not saving articles, but it was a big enough article that I'm sure if we Googled it, we could find it, where a statistician quantified luck in all the major professional sports, and hockey was one of the most random.
It was the most random.
Yeah, to get the same equivalency outcome as the NBA, as a best of 7 series in the NBA in terms of consistency of results, the NHL would have to play they said it was a best of 55 or something like that. It was insane how random a lot of hockey was. So if we're talking that much of a difference between a certainty talent league like the NBA, but any team can go on a run for a month. Any team. It doesn't mean they're good. It could be a hot goaltender, a hot power play. One line just gets crazy hot. There's been teams that have lucked their way into wins because they just kept running into teams that were ridiculously injured. It happens. Teams get lucky. Things happen. So
my hot take is that I prefer that.
I prefer it maybe not.
NBA?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. Because the NBA, again, for when everybody's healthy, is boring because you know who the champions are going to be before the season started. That was that 3-year stretch. We knew it would be Cleveland, Golden State every year, and it was until half of Golden State got injured and LeBron left Cleveland. So
Toronto still had to pull off a miracle to win that series.
Yeah, and that was with Clay out for the final game and Durant out for the entire series.
Yeah,
it's insane. So I
know those snakes, they can never stay on the court, right?
Right. I didn't know snakes had Achilles tendons.
Watch out! Watch your Twitter. You might get DM'd by Kevin Durant for that slander.
He's, instead of going and liking all of Mel's pictures, he's just gonna go and like all of your pictures or something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
God,
so anyway,
that guy's so easy to make fun of. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
But yeah, circling back to your original point, as fun as it, even if Montreal went on a run to Game 7 of the Cup final and lost. It's still a waste. You didn't win the Cup. You didn't get Lafreniere. What ultimately did you get out of this season other than 2 months of fun? Now, don't get me wrong, in the hashtag these trying times, 2 months of fun can go a long way for a lot of fans' mental health. And that is worth something. That is the point of being a fan. So I am not disregarding that at all. But if we look back at this in 5 years and Montreal is still just like a middling team, you know, it would have maybe bumped them out of finishing between 7th and 10th every year. Lafreniere.
Yeah, and it's one of those decisions where both sides have an argument, because what Brad said is not wrong. But if you're a fan of a team who was just pumped to see them play playoff hockey, going on an insane run, come within 60 minutes of a win of a cup in a year where you really shouldn't even have made the playoffs, and then someone tells you, well, it would have been better if they had a 1-8 shot at this guy, they'll say, kick rocks. Like, that isn't a 12.5% chance of winning in my mind. That's an 87.5% chance of not getting the ideal outcome. And then you don't have the Game 7 in the Cup Finals, and you don't have Lafreniere. So, no, kick rocks. There's merit to both of them. In terms of, like, tangibly on paper, what would matter more? Unless it's a Cup win, it's winning the first overall pick. Of course. But there's a lot to be said, and it means a lot to a team too. Like, this is now a fan base that will buy into what Marc Bergevin is building in Montreal.
Again, though, that could.
Do I think they're going to go there? Oh, of course it can be. Of course it can be. That's the kind of stuff that fuels teams to kind of run too long in terms of their competition. New York, and I say this half in jest now because they won Capo Caco and now they're going to win Alexis Lafreniere. So their rebuild was what, like 3 blinks of an eye. But they probably hung on for too long after their cup run just to kind of try to get that one for Henrik Lundqvist. But they were kind of regarded as having hung on for a season or two too long in terms of trying to make a roster work that was never really going to truly compete as is. That said, they're going to be back there really soon. And so woe unto any of the naysayers and the pencil pushers and the geeks, myself included, who say, oh, no, they should have started this year or that year. Just like on the ice, when you're building teams, there's so much luck involved. I don't know. I also don't think Montreal is going to make a cup run. But at the same time, if they donkey kicked Philly in Game 2, who should be one of the cup favorites, this team's not a joke, and they're not to be taken lightly. And they have that one tool that I say any cup winner usually needs, a hot goaltender. And it helps when your goaltender is one of the most talented on the planet.
Well, Montreal, too, it's amazing how much they live and die with Carey Price, because going into this season, I think we all agreed Montreal was probably not a playoff team, but I think we all said they would be battling for a playoff spot. And the reality is they weren't. Carey Price had a bad year. Like, not even by his standards, by average NHL goaltending standards, he had a bad year, and they were not even sniffing a playoff spot. Carey Price is hot now, and they're tied in an actual playoff round with a team that's a favorite for the cup. So, it's shows you how much goaltending matters in hockey, whether people want to admit it or not. And B, I mean, that's Montreal in a nutshell. Take out Carey Price, they're a bad team. They are
Brad,
they are a bad hockey team.
Yaroslav Askarov in the top 5?
No.
Brad.
Because I'm still a firm believer that you can find elite goalies and variety of other ways. It doesn't have to be $10 million and a 5th overall pick. I mean, Carey Price, I would argue, hasn't even been the best goalie in these playoffs. And Columbus is playing Korpisalo, what, $2 million? And they got him, what, in the 17th round?
Let's talk about elite goalies for a second, because into the playoffs, not even in the qualifying round or beforehand, Tuukka Rask has opted out from playing for the Boston Bruins. Now, first of all, we're not here let's get this out of the way. No one's criticizing this. He's got a newborn. He's got 3 kids at home. This was a personal family decision. It didn't come as a shock to the team. He'd been talking about it for some time. It was kind of seen as a bonus that he even held on as long as he did. So that out of the way. Boston is now losing their most talented goaltender. That said, they have this guy who's kind of like a Robin Lehner type who goes from team to team and seems to just play like a starter when he wants to in Yaroslav Halak. So how does that affect the Bruins with a very tough Carolina Hurricanes opponent?
Before I talk about how they're going to do Carolina, I need to get one thing out of the way. Two things out of the way. One, obviously I fully support Tuukka Rask. Forget the pandemic. I mean, if I had a newborn, no, I would have never been there. Zero chance. It wouldn't have even registered in my head. Like, I don't think people realize how much work a newborn is, let alone if you have 2 other kids. His poor wife, even for the 3 weeks he was gone. And B, your newborn's only a newborn once. You don't get that time back. He'll have many more NHL seasons. He may never have another child. So this might be his last time he's ever going to get to have a tiny baby at home that he gets to care for, raise, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And 2, after reading Twitter and all the social media about it, this is why everyone hates Boston fans in every sport. You people don't deserve Tuukka Rask. Now, I'm aware that not every Boston fan was all over Tuukka for this. I'm aware. Okay? Most Bruins fans were fully supportive because they're not monsters. On the other hand, this was a far higher percentage of lunatics piping off versus any other fan base. Because I know every fan base has a vocal minority of idiots. This seemed like a pretty damn high percentage compared to other teams. Maybe it's just me. Maybe Boston has overall more fans than I give them credit for. But I don't think so. We live in Leaf country. So I've seen chaos in mass numbers and still understand the percentages there. I hate Boston sports so much, and it is only because of their fans. They are the worst. Oh, and their announcers. Oh, their announcers.
A lot of Boston content this episode.
Oh, my.
Oh, yeah.
And almost none of it good.
Brad, speaking of sports that you care about, we were paddling and we went past a campsite that had a Buffalo Bills towel strung up, like drying off, and I went, oh, those poor souls. And then Abby started crying. I said, I know, they'll never win though, Abby, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, this is if anybody wants a snapshot into what it's like to be a Bills fan, the Patriots finally lose Brady. Were, by most outlets that I've been reading, widely considered to be the favorites to win the AFC East and a legit Super Bowl contender out of the AFC. And the season might get canceled because of pandemic. We're not allowed to be happy.
Well, it's the good Lord's punishment for having you talk about the Buffalo Bills. Sorry.
I think what happening here is it's all the souls of all those poor folding tables that are just raining bad karma on us.
You guys let us know if this is different, but this is how I feel about this is what I think the fans perceive as the rankings for ancillary sports conversations. Like Evan's talking about golf, me talking about Formula One or something else. A bunch of empty spaces. You talking about the Jays, a few more empty spaces, and then you talking about the Bills.
Yeah, something like that.
At least the Jays are relevant to Tigers fans because they're an actual rival.
They are?
Yeah, maybe it's just a Windsor thing. That might just be because I'm from Windsor.
I mean, if you're making that connection, there's absolutely a connection between the Bills and Lions. We're the basement bros and have been for a long time.
They've been friends. Okay, so moving on from the playoffs, of course, those series are still happening right now. Honestly, the only real shocking ones for me are not really shocking that Vancouver's up 2-0. The Islanders already being up 3-0 is kind of wild. But let's move on to some Red Wings related news, which isn't a lot. Mike Green is going to retire.
Good
for him. He's still a usable NHLer, but he's been battling a ton of illnesses and injuries, and he's got 2 small children.
I've got his elite prospects page up because I was interested. I like to go through retiring guys' numbers, see what stands out. He's played 1 full season of 82 games. 1.
Wow.
1.
And also, what was it, from 2007 to 2010, his numbers were cartoonish?
Yeah, in 2008, 2009, he had that was the year he went off and had 31 goals, 42 assists, but only 68 games played.
31
Holy.
goals.
Yeah, it was over a
68
point
games
there.
as a defenseman.
Yeah,
Are
Those
we
were all the power
ever
play
going to
that year.
see that again? Honestly. With the Islanders bringing back the Devil's Trap era, I mean...
What was his record that year?
Time.
What was his record that year? Like consecutive power play goals or something?
it was like it was ridiculous.
Like 9 or 10 games. I might be
Yeah.
misremembering what the actual record was, but no, he was a freak. And even when he came to Detroit, like, yeah, we tend to remember, we have a little bit of recency bias, so we remember the worst parts of it, but he was no schlub. You saw a lot of flashes of what made Mike Green so effective for the Caps. But yeah, just starting his family, the young kids at home. He opted out of the return to play for that reason. He wants to preserve the health of his kids, and especially because they're at risk in terms of their immunity. So good for him for having a great career. And Red Wings fans are lucky to have had him. And you think about what Red Wings fans have had that's been good for the past 5 years, which is like next to nothing. Mike Green filled a gap of some kind of excitement and some kind of production for the team. Was it the Mike Green that the NHL will know and remember? No, of course not. The Red Wings would have been a much better team, and we wouldn't be talking about him as a former Red Wings player, but no. Good on Green, and hope he enjoys his retirement. It's more than well-deserved. And in terms of other Wings news, not really much. Yeah, we probably have to wait until the offseason before things really start moving. Caught Gonzalez playing in Finland this season. There's some news.
Do we still consider him a prospect?
He's not exactly at the top of the board,
Yeah, he's probably firmly somewhere in the 20s at this point.
Yeah, he's not going back to BU for what would have been his senior year. So, Asat, I think, is the team he was going to. I'm not Jokerit. Yeah,
he's going to play with Kevin Mackey if he comes back.
Yeah, and they had an announcement regarding Kevin Mackey, or they said they were going to announce something, and it looks like he's been training. So Kevin Mackey obviously had that brutal hit towards the end of his previous season, and he's a tiny guy. He was a guy that's like 5'7", like 140 pounds, soaking wet, and he took a terrible headshot, and like it was ugly. They were talking about him maybe not playing again. So if he comes back, that'd be obviously great for him, and not like he's not top of the board prospect, but yeah, another fun flyer to kind of look at.
Hey, two Red Wings prospects on one Finnish team. Maybe we should get seasons tickets if everything goes well in Finland.
Yeah, how are we going to fly there? We'll row.
Yeah.
Okay. The meat of this episode. This one will be of interest to some people. The prospect profile. The top, depending on who you're asking, the top defenseman available on the board, in most people's opinion, Jamie Drysdale.
Who?
Do the Red Wings? Yeah, just this guy. I thought it was Drysdale. No, I'm kidding. Jamie Drysdale. A lot of people have him as the Red Wings' hopeful pick. A lot of people are not even interested in having him as the Red Wings pick. But nonetheless, he is in the mix of the Erie Otters and the O. Brad, take us away on Jamie Drysdale.
All right. So, the top defensive prospect to anybody with some common sense. Everybody knows what Jamie Drysdale is if you've read any rankings in the last year, because he's in the top 10 of all of them, top 5 in a lot of them. He is an elite skating offensive defenseman with an above average defensive game for a defenseman of his size, because at least on Elite Prospects, he's listed at 5'11", 170. So he is roughly my size, a little taller and a little lighter, so he ain't big. But he's got a really, really high hockey IQ. An amazing transition player. That's probably the strength of his game, truth be told, is getting that puck north from south, whether that's skating it up himself or using his outlets and making the right pass at the right time. So, the summary there is Jamie Drysdale is a jack of all trades defenseman. You can put him in basically any situation, and at worst, he will be competent. Now, here's the thing. Is Jamie Drysdale an elite number 1 defenseman for your team? Is he a number 2 or is he a number 3? Because there's debates for all of them. I tend to see him in the NHL as a really good number 2. I don't have super high confidence in his offensive game translating to be elite in the NHL. Now, again, this isn't meant to come off as negative because I think he will have a very good offensive game in the NHL. But if we're talking about a top 5 pick, especially as a defenseman, you want the word elite in there. And I don't know if that is there for him. Again, it's jack of all trades, master of none is not a fair statement because of how good his transition game is. And I think his defensive game will get there. He's just so smart. There's no way, even with his stature, I think he'll still be elite defensively. But when you look at his offensive totals in the OHL, he is like, his point totals are way behind where an Evan Bouchard was at the same point going into his draft year, and so on and so forth. He was close to a point per game, which, again, for a 17-year-old defenseman in the OHL is still incredible. I don't have him in my top 5, but I think that has a lot to do with just the strength of this draft more so than a knock on Drysdale.
Well, he didn't have the luxury of playing for a London team that's routinely loaded with NHL talent.
That is fair.
I think I can't remember where he finished last year, but I'm sure it wasn't in the top half of the league. And he played in the Ivan Holinka tournament last year, right?
Yes.
Was that 2 years ago?
He played in the World Juniors this year.
Yeah, so that's a lot of hockey and a lot of minutes for a guy who's supposed to be the top D-man on his junior team that's getting shelled every night. So that could probably, all add up to lesser offensive numbers, but all the highlights, I haven't had the luxury of watching him in person, but all the highlights I've watched and just general footage, his skating is incredible. His forwards, backwards, lateral, north, south, east, west, it is so good. And he has the framework to succeed at the current NHL. Like, this is how the defensemen are starting to look these days. They're good skaters and good with the puck. So it all depends if he can add some strength. I think I hate to say guaranteed, but in my opinion, he's guaranteed a top 4 defenseman on any team. And just really depends on his development, but I could definitely see him being top 2 on a team, perhaps even a franchise level player. But it's hard. Defense are almost like goalies; they're a little bit voodoo, and they take a long time. So it might be a while to see what you get with Jamie Drysdale.
Yeah, in fairness to Jamie Drsydale, I'm going to probably break him down, the profile of him down in 2 ways. One, him versus the field, and then 2, him versus what I think the Red Wings should pick. So these 2 guys kind of covered virtually everything there is to know about him. And the first thing that stands out to me watching Jamie Drysdale is what Evan just mentioned, which is his skating is elite in every way. It's not just his top end speed. It's not just his, edge work. It's not just his breakout speed. It's not just his east-west or lateral movement or backward skating. Like, this guy stands out with his skating in every facet of this game. He is a natural skater. Like, you do not see a lot of defensemen who move like him, and that is so advantageous. And he translates that into what Brad mentioned, which is an elite transition game. This is the guy who can get the puck out of your zone. This is the guy who can get the puck safely through the neutral zone, whether carrying it himself or making an excellent pass or a read of the play. And this is a guy who can dish the puck out in the offensive zone, be a true number 1 power play QB. And that last line is what kind of gives me a lot of hope for Jamie Drysdale, where even if he doesn't turn into a true number 1 defenseman, which I wouldn't write him off for, you're at least looking at a guy who should be your power play QB and be a super effective guy. I mean, we just got done talking about Mike Green. Was he the most complete defenseman in the world? No, but on the power play, the guy knew what he was doing.
He made a career of it almost.
Absolutely he did. He got paid well for it too, and he put up some huge numbers for some teams. Even with Detroit, like, those offensive flashes were there, especially earlier on. So I see a lot in Jamie Drysdale, and he's never who I recommend as, the preferred Red Wings pick in the Wind Wheel podcast opinion, but that's not a knock on him. That's more of what I view the Red Wings needing, and that's more of a view of the field around him. It is rare for there to be so many potentially high impact forwards available in and around where Jamie Drysdale should be taken if you're the Red Wings at number 4. Most other years, he would be right up there. I talk about 1A and 1B with like Raymond and Rossi or Perfetti. Most other years, Drysdale would be the 1B in my mind. The Red Wings have a glut of, not a glut is rich considering how bad this team is, but right-handed defenseman is not a need for the team right now, especially after taking Moritz Seider last year. And yeah, you take best player available, but at some point, especially when you have a team with so many holes, you can't just keep plugging the same one. So if Lucas Raymond wasn't there, if Cole Perfetti wasn't there, if Marco Rossi wasn't there, if maybe even like a pipe dream, Tim Stützle or Quentin Byfield could even be there, then yeah, we'd be talking about Jamie Drysdale at 4. But for me, I just view the forwards as having so much more potential impact. That said, if Yzerman goes off the board, which like it's not off the board for the top defenseman to go number 4, I will not be upset. People talk about Sanderson a lot, and I think very highly of Sanderson. If I was an NHL coach, he'd be my favorite kind of defenseman. The guy plays both ends of the ice extremely well, but he is so responsible defensively. He is so smart defensively. He always makes the right play defensively, and I think that's underappreciated because it doesn't show up on stat sheets when people talk about defensemen. But you want to know what sets Jamie Drysdale apart? This guy has a mind for the offensive zone and to move the play and create plays like no other defenseman in this draft. And I think that's what puts him a full tier above Sanderson. And like Brad said, it just takes a little bit of, just look at it. Just look at how naturally it comes to Drysdale. And that's why so many people have him ranked so much more highly. So I think the world of Drysdale. A lot of other drafts, I would want him for Detroit. But considering last year with them taking Moritz Seider and considering who's going to be available next year in next year's draft, those top end defensemen, I don't think that's the right pick for Detroit at number 4.
Totally agree. And this is where I think Ottawa can make out like bandits with that number 3 and number 5 pick. At number 3, they get the coveted forward that they want, and if they need to plug holes on the back end, they'll probably have Jamie Drysdale sitting right there. Mind you, I don't think they make any bad picks at 3 and 5.
No, there's none at all. Someone on Reddit today asked, or like I answered a post. They're like, who's your preferred pick at number 4? And it comes up obviously like twice a day. And I said 1A, Raymond, 1B, Rossi, 1C, Perfetti, 2, Drysdale. Like, you can't not go wrong. And if you're Ottawa, how do you go from Mark Stone among many others and Erik Karlsson leaving your team, and then all of a sudden you get Quentin Byfield or Tim Stützle and then Jamie Drysdale? They could go off the board, guarantee themselves Drysdale if they really want that, and still walk away with at least Lucas Raymond or Marco Rossi at number 5.
They owe us at least that.
Please, Ottawa, please. Sure, we've talked a lot of shit about your team over the past couple of years. Well, we've talked a lot of shit about a lot of teams over the past couple of years.
To be fair, we talk shit about everyone. So really, it's all even at the end of the day.
We talked the most shit about the Red Wings. So take that to heart, Eugene Melnick. Any bad things we said about you, we probably meant it. Stop terrorizing those poor fans.
Red Wings, Leafs, Boston. That's the order. And everybody else is after that.
What do you guys think about, how would you react if Drysdale went to Detroit?
Meh. I mean,
that'll be bad for the live stream.
Yeah, it's.
I guess we'll turn it off now.
I mean, I from a skill set standpoint, I don't hate Drysdale at 4. I could absolutely see the argument, but I mean, you couple that Drysdale literally plays the position where the Red Wings are the strongest in their pipeline. Like there's nobody at forwards, and they have a ton of defensive prospects, especially at right side. So that, I mean, you never draft based on need, but still, and like man, I really like Raymond, Rossi, Perfetti, Holtz. It's hard when the Red Wings need forwards so desperately, and there's going to be 4 or 5 there that you could absolutely justify. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'd hate it just because I do like Drysdale so much, honestly, and he'd be the best defenseman in the Red Wings pipeline. I mean, that's the reality of it.
sure.
The second we draft him, so you can like Mo Seider, you can like McIsaac, Johansson, whatever. Drysdale's better, so that's obviously a massive plus. But I mean, is Drysdale that much ahead of Seider? Offensively, yeah. Defensively, he's probably behind Seider. And then if you compare that to any of the forwards that they could draft, would they be the best forward prospect on the team? Yes, by a country mile. So it's, again, never draft on need, but I will not be able to get that out of the back of my head.
Yeah, the only way I would really... They have to be very confident that Drysdale can drive some offense early in his NHL career to make it worth it, because you know if they take a forward with their first pick, they'll be driving a lot of offense, and a lot of it will go through them sooner rather than later. So I would still be happy. I don't think there's a way I could not be happy. Unless Stützle or Byfield are sitting there and we pick somebody else, then I might lose my damn mind. I'll be going out Ryan's window. I would be perfectly happy with that pick, but yeah, when you think about the number of right-handed defensemen we have in the prospects pool, that it's not a position of need. And with all of the high-end forwards sitting there in the draft this year, it's a hard sell for me.
I have, obviously, we've talked a lot about what our favorite picks would be, and those would be in like I'm happy. Different degrees of happy. Like Byfield or Stützle, I'm thrilled. Raymond, Rossi, Perfetti, I'm very happy. That's my happy tier. My not overjoyed, but also not upset. I think Drysdale would fit in there. I think Holtz would fit in there. My like disappointed, but can't be too upset tier would include like a Jake Sanderson type, or like maybe like a wild pick like Lundell. And my absolutely brain melting, I don't know how to feel about this is just too much chaos tier would be Yaroslav Askarov. Brad, I think Brad's head would actually steam. You'd see steam coming out of his ears on that one.
A good chance, honestly.
And then you just have me shrieking, but Carey Price at you for the next 4 years.
And if
until Askarov's the starting goalie.
If that's what helps you get through it.
Well, there's less than 2 months now to the draft, so I'm sure we'll find more ways to hypothesize our anger. Okay, that is our review of Jamie Drysdale. We are going to revisit him as a likely, because he is one of the potential Red Wings picks, so we are going to be revisiting it in a larger conversation down the road, but that is our prospect analysis. Thank you for tuning into that. Until next week, until next episode when we have another one. Okay, overtime. On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, we'd like to thank all of our Winged Wheel Podcast patrons. You guys are the reason we are able to run this show, especially during the long Red Wings offseason. Thank you all so much. Overtime is where we read out comments, questions, and everything in between from fans of the Winged Wheel Podcast. We will always do our Patreon supporters, and then on weekend episodes like this one, we try to get to some Reddit and or Twitter questions for anyone who tweeted with hashtag AskWWP. So we're going to start with Caltroit Red Flames, who said Ryan lives, and then showed a picture of an otter with his hands in the air. That's about how soaked I was after today's storm, so that is very, very accurate. Ashley Van Conant says, "Hey guys, I found the podcast in the fall of last year, so still a relatively new listener. Every once in a while, I'll pick a random episode from the back catalog to listen to while I'm itching for some extra hockey talk. Do you have any favorite old episodes that you think are especially worth listening to?" Oh, that's a really good question.
I don't think any of them are worth listening to, so...
I love any of our pre and post draft episodes from any year. And I really like our season preview episodes. I think those are a lot of fun. The post draft episode where we got Zadina was probably one of my favorite episodes ever to do. And then obviously, the Yzerman one in a similar vein, just because we were so happy. And it's been a while since we've had that. There's probably really good episodes mixed in there where it's like really, really good content and not just how we felt during it. The problem is I have really awful recall and we record this show a million times. I'm hard pressed, but I see some of the listeners have also already replied to Ashley with some good episodes. So thank you all and keep going with that. I really like our old takes exposed. That's really funny.
I'm sure there's some awful takes, just some that we totally stood behind and we totally thought were good. I bet you they're horrendous.
Yeah.
So that's like most of our takes.
If we're gonna stick our necks out and talk into these mics way too much twice a week, that's what's gonna happen. Michael Barry says, "Hope you guys enjoyed your Sunday. How does Ratty and Chaz Lucius compare to forwards in this draft? I get a lot of Nico Hischier comparison with Ratty, with Lucius a lot of Cole Caulfield comparison. Is this accurate? Anyone else we should look for in the 2021 draft?"
Oh man, are we talking about forward specifically here? Because the 2021 draft is like, that's the defenseman home run swing between Brant Clark, Carson Lambos, Owen Power. We might see 3 defensemen in the top 4, if maybe even the top 3 of the draft coming up. Like it's stacked at that position.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Clark or the Lambos pick there, just for the defensive glut. You don't see that kind of thing very often, which is why I think that should be the year the Red Wings take their shot. Carson Lambos, what side does he shoot?
I believe he's a righty. I can't remember. I get him and Clark mixed up because I know Clark's a righty.
Why are there so many right-handed defensemen all of a sudden? Detroit used to not be able to buy right-handed defensemen. Oh, it looks like he shoots left. So maybe Carson Lambos is the move there. Anyways, lots will change between now and then. So hopefully what the Red Wings walk away with is their top pairing left-handed shooting defenseman to play with either Moside or Hronek. That's what I have as the ideal in my mind. And I know a lot of Red Wings fans have the same. P.S. Now that we know we will be drafting the mid-second round, is there anyone you want? I would like to see Daniil Gushin, a small left winger overlooked because of size, or Eamon Powell, defenseman with the USHL, with his advanced pass-moving ability. Thoughts on those 2 guys?
Who was it? Gushin and who else?
Eamon Powell.
I have Gushin ranked 48 in my rankings right now, so I would be more than okay with that pick there. I don't have Powell ranked in my second round at all, so I'm going to pass on that. And who would I want? Anybody I have ranked 31 or higher. That
Joe Delia says, "Hey guys, heard on 31 Thoughts that Edmonton might let Athanasiou walk because of no cap space. Which team would you like him to go to, and which team would be a good spot for him?" Also mentioned Mike Green. Thanks, guys.
Detroit. Because
I was going to say, Detroit would be great.
Welcome
galaxy
back.
brain moment if Steve Yzerman gets 2 second-round picks for Andreas Athanasiou and ends up with Andreas Athanasiou would be an all-time move.
Welcome to Ken Holland, Edmonton Oilers fan.
Oh, it's a wild ride. Honestly, though, I just hope he ends up on any team that can play him, because I don't know what the hell Dave Tippett was doing over there in Edmonton, playing like Zach Kassian ahead of him, even though Zach Kassian did nothing in the qualifiers.
I would have guessed that Zach Kassian wouldn't be a good top 6 forward, and
except for that one term. That one playoffs, he was kind of good, and he's been coasting on that reputation for 3 years now. I mean, and Athanasiou is 1 year removed from scoring 30 goals, so on a terrible team, mind you. So I don't know. There's a lot of good options for Athanasiou. I mean, if you want a low-key crappy team that I think he could actually make a difference on and do really well with, Buffalo.
That's actually not a bad option.
He would get a ton of ice time. He would probably be playing with a very favorable set of line mates, whether that's Eichel, Reinhart, whoever it might be. all primary playmakers, so he'd get the puck a lot. And from a personal standpoint, I mean, the dude's from the GTA, so it'd be close to home, so that could be a actual UFA destination he would enjoy.
Garrett TV says, "Hey, hockey amigos, we now know that the entire Detroit organization was pretty upset about the draft lottery, as reported by multiple sources. However, one thing we haven't really talked about is how Seattle next year have the equivalent of third best odds in the draft, regardless of where we finish. So I feel like not enough is being made about just how far back this BS 2020 lottery could have set us. I'm not one to cry foul of the NHL because there's no conspiracy to assist us, but this is really, really super unlucky for the Red Wings. Even the best of rebuild strategies require some luck." Rangers. Anyways, that's all. Existence is pain. Glad you're alive, Ryan. Hope your stick is on the ice. Let's go Red Wings.
Yeah, because there's a reality next year where if the Red Wings finish as the 4th worst team in the league, they could fall back 4 spots from their standings.
Yeah, it makes me really happy, and it surprises me not at all that behind the scenes, the Red Wings were pissed about the draft lottery because it was, let me just check my notes here. I wrote something down. Bullshit. Moving on, Mike Lennox says, "My question is, where do you see Sanderson being taken in a weak defenseman draft, and how many D-men do you see being taken in the first round?"
There'll be a lot of defensemen taken in the first round. I think you'll probably see a run on them in, like, I'll say pick 17 to 30. I do think that there's a very real chance Drysdale and Sanderson are the only defensemen to go in the top 15, but I've been hearing teams are falling in love with Caden Gooley and Braden Schneider, so expect one of them to jump up. I think Sanderson will probably go somewhere between 7 and 13, if I had to give a range, just because, I mean, Drysdale will be gone by then, and there will be a team that will just need a defenseman and fall in love with them, and it'll happen. I know when we did our mock draft, I think Winnipeg's picking in that range, and it makes way too much sense for them to not pick him, so we'll see.
If Sanderson jumps anywhere past like 8, it means there's an egregiously good defenseman going way, way too far down the list. Like, you're talking Rossi or Holtz or something being available at 10, some dumb shit like that. RC Tendy, I also think there's going to be upward, like, you're going to see at least 4 or 5 defensemen being taken. I think there's a cycle of like defensemen being analyzed and then subsequently bumped up the draft. We saw it with Sanderson. We're seeing it now with Gooley and Schneider. We're probably going to see one other defenseman be coveted. And once defensemen start to go, it's like goalies in a fantasy hockey draft. They're all going to go very fast. RC Tendy says, "Brad, you missed my question last week. What was the dumbest way you've injured yourself? I messed up my back from sneezing while bent over tying my shoes."
Oh my God, the list I have for this would be long. So I'm gonna stick to an answer that is really on brand for me. And I once broke my nose by actually back checking in a hockey game, which is why I'm never gonna do that again.
Oh man, Ethan Boulderson had a great question. It's better basically saying, he said this might serve as a better expanded topic for Patreon episode, and we might actually do that. But very quickly, of the teams currently in the playoffs, what team winning the cup most impacts the Wings rebuild? Not in terms of picks, but more in style of play, coaching, scouting moves, and overall systems. Like if the Islanders, Blues, or Dallas won, we might see bigger and more physical players drafted, et cetera, et cetera.
I kind of feel like that's the way Detroit's already going when you look at their recent drafts. I think what would impact the Wings the most is if that like high skill, all offense team wins. So I don't know if Tampa will be fair because they're kind of ridiculously good all over the place. I'm trying to think. Vancouver maybe would fit that bill. Vegas kind of fits that bill because Vegas, they're not a big team and they play a very up-tempo pace. So that could make them think in another way. Carolina plays a very fast style game, but they have a ridiculously good defense. So I could see the Red Wings just writing it off as that. I don't know. I don't know. I think the NHL, again, you guys all know my thoughts. I think the NHL's very slowly creeping back into the dead puck era 2.0. So I think most teams are going to start building that way soon. I mean, just look at what the Islanders are doing to the Capitals right now, and what Columbus did to Toronto and is almost doing to Tampa Bay. Because I know you could say, oh, well, Columbus is losing the series to Tampa 2-1. I mean, on paper, those teams should be in different leagues. So the fact that Columbus is hanging with Tampa as they are is just another testament to how well that system works, which sucks because it's boring compared to the other styles of hockey.
Evan Pardo says, hey fellas, how would you rank the following defensemen in terms of overall potential? Drysdale, Sanderson, Lambos, Clark, and Power. Thanks and keep up the great work.
Man, in terms of, okay, it's so early, but I think I have the 3 2021 guys ahead of the 2 2020 guys. Like Brant
Clark. Kind of
Clark,
what I'm thinking.
Brant Clark's second half with Barrie this year was unreal. Owen Power, man, he's 6'6", can skate, and with good offense. If everything rounds into his form for him, he could be a souped up Colton Parayko. Lambos,
that's his sweet new nickname.
Souped up Colton Parayko. Yeah, I love it. And then Lambos is just kind of that Drysdale mold, but he's still super young, so his upside could be higher than Drysdale's. It could be lower. We'll find out in a year. But yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Ian says, what has to happen for Lafreniere to lose just enough draft stock to fall to 4th? COVID, cocaine, everything normal except he suddenly can't say the word puck and can only say beanbag instead? Give me something to root for.
Amputation below the left knee.
Even then, I think he goes 3rd.
Yeah, I could see Pierre Dorian and Eugene Melnyk missing the memo.
Them just going, oh, well. Obirwan Kenobi says, where do you think Howard signs next year and how much is Edmonton going to pay him? I hadn't even considered that.
Oh my God, I could see it, as horrifying as it is. I mean, my money's still on Detroit until I start hearing rumors otherwise, because we have Bernier, and I don't see Yzerman at this point in the rebuild wanting to pay a goalie. So I could see it.
Yeah. It'll be for a minimum because everyone's going to be cash strapped.
Oh, yeah.
Alex Ott says, are there any players you think that you guys think the Red Wings should try to target as a reclamation project like Fabry 2.0 for next year? Someone who isn't a cap dump for another team, but rather a player who needs a change of scenery to potentially refine their game. And if so, what would be a logical trade piece that you guys would be comfortable giving up?
Can I pick a UFA?
Yeah, go for it.
Alex Galchenyuk.
That's a good one. Mine isn't even the right answer for this because this guy's known as a good player. But with Nashville blowing everything up, I just wonder if there's any way possible to get Victor Arvidsson off their hands.
I think his contract's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a great contract.
Yeah, that one's a bit of a pipe dream.
He doesn't need a change of scenery. Like
I was looking at it. Kyle Turris. Because we'd get an asset with him. And
yeah,
he's pretty consistently still a 0.5 point per game, which for what his contract is objectively terrible. But he would be clearly the second best centerman on the Red Wings next year. And he'd be a massive upgrade over Val Filppula in that spot. I don't know if Nashville would give up pick 13 or whatever it was in this draft to unload him to us, but I think you could get a pretty sizable asset out of Nashville to get Kyle Turris, because Elliot Friedman was talking about buying out. They might buy him out, which would be $2 million per year over the next 8 years. If you go to Nashville and say, hey, we'll take him, you retain $2 million. Now they only have Kyle Turris on the books for 4 years at $2 million. Detroit gets him for $4 million. It's a longer contract than you would like, but he's an upgrade at the position. He's been at worst, he's putting up the numbers a $4 million player should put up right now. So if they can do that, it's not a bad value contract, at least in the short term. And depending what that other asset is, maybe it's pick 13, maybe, or pick 11, 12, 13. I don't know what Nashville's exact pick is. Maybe it's next year's first rounder. Maybe it's Eli Tolvanen. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. I could see a reality where that could be very beneficial for both teams.
Yeah, and Turris is a name I've seen people throw around, and I've seen a lot of people react with like disgust, kind of like one of the really awful contracts that lasts forever from Vancouver. And all I can think is like, no, like I like you said, Brad, I view Turris almost like you view Louis Eriksson. Like the keg's not empty there. There's stuff left in the tank, and sure, maybe not playing up to that contract, but if you're a team with the benefit of a ton of cap space and you can get a ludicrous piece, like, again, my stupid metaphor of rebuilding as a speed limit, that's how you accelerate beyond it. That is how you pry away premier pieces, by helping teams who need to get rid of that asset. And especially now, and I mentioned this before, not every team can even spend to $81.5 million. Some of them are going to have internal caps that are even lower. So that's a really good answer.
And I'm just saying, you look at his last 3 years with Nashville, 42 points in 65 games, 23 in 55, 31 in 62 this past season. Compare that to Val Filppula. That is an upgrade. And Turris is, what is he, 31? So he's a lot younger than Filppula. He's not young, but he's younger. And at the last World Championships, 10 points in 10 games, playing on a line with Anthony Mantha.
C Nods says, simple question, what team has impressed you the most, including the play-in? Mine is definitely the Islanders. Holy hell, I wouldn't think that they'd be up 3 games. My answer as well, Barry Trotz continues to impress me.
Islanders, Vegas, Vancouver.
Hard to not say Columbus after they beat Toronto and are looking, serviceable against Tampa.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I've really liked Philly. I thought Philly's probably been the best team, and then they start playing Montreal and lose 5-0. But I thought up until then that they came out of the gate looking like the most complete team.
Yeah.
Still winning in the third period, 1-0.
This has been a fun playoff so far. Joseph Fournier says, hey there, fellas, and welcome back. The playoff games are starting to look like what we're used to seeing. Quick thoughts, Mike Milbury and Jack Edwards can go sod off. I don't blame Tuukka Rask for leaving at all. The Knights in the Isles look real good. Stars Flames, best series so far. Kemper would have won Vezina if healthy. Refs suck. Sorry for Svechnikov. Canadians, gruesome centerman overnight. Hayes, Foligno, Horvat, Price, Lee, all in beast mode. And I would gladly pay Jordan Martinook to announce my entrance at public events for the rest of my life. So you're seeing a Quinn Hughes excel for the Canucks, placing 5th in defense scoring and dominating in the playoffs. Don't feel bad. Keep your Philip Zadina and a Stay Fresh cheese bag so that he's ready to hit his stride in a full season with an upcoming 4th overall pick. Stay fresh cheese bags. Well said, Joseph.
Mr. Svechnikov.
Mr. Svechnikov. Ovechkin Stan Club says, well, I'm over these playoffs. May the best team win. Such a disappointment of a playoffs. I give them props for being able to do this, but Ferk, I'm over it. If they can go and win 4 in a row, I'd be amazed. And since Rowan is officially a celebrity in this fan base, you guys need to do a golf-only guy and Rowan podcast. Caps need a new head coach, and I'm not a fan of our guy. Maybe you shouldn't have given up your old guy. Evan, that is a great Patreon episode. You and Rowan only.
No, thank you.
That means it's absolutely happening. It's either you and Rowan or Brad and Rowan. So one of you.
I vote for that one.
I'm good.
Time for some Reddit questions. Cross Crease Pass says, so Mike Green retired. I think he was great at skating the puck out of the zone and make plays off the rush, but his defensive game and power play QB abilities left a lot to be desired with Detroit. Seems like a lot of fans are giving him the benefit of the doubt because of injuries and the team's lack of overall skill, but at the end of the day, he never really performed up to his billing IMO. In my opinion, he was never going to. He was just kind of an overpaid stopgap. We had the vestiges of those skills, and they were never anyone who expected that. I don't know, anyone who kind of billed him as being able to do that in Detroit. I never really felt like that was a fair expectation.
He had like 141 points. He was almost a half point per game defenseman on mainly bad Red Wings teams. I don't know really what the expectations were.
I mean, people still remember what Mike Green was in 2010, and they thought that was who he was 5 years later still. So
he only did that 1 year. I mean, he played with way better players in Washington, and when you have Ovechkin, when you have Ovechkin on the power play, and you had a bomb, Mike Green had a bomb for like 3 or 4 years, and that was it.
Cyborg Holiday says, I don't really understand why you guys are so high on Rossi. You seem to be in the minority.
What? We are?
Yeah, a lot of people don't.
Like inside the top 5 by most
A lot of people don't consider him at number 4.
Really? I've seen a lot of rankings with him in the top, comfortably in the top 5.
Elite Prospects has him at number 4. Future Considerations has him as number 5. ISS has him as 7. 8, Craig Button. 9.
Yes, but where does he have Lick My Sack?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh man. Yeah, no, I think I have Rossi 5th. Yeah, I have Rossi 5th.
Bob McKenzie has him at 7, and so that's what I consider gospel.
I have him at 5, so it's like I'm two spots off of Bob McKenzie, which is for all intents and purposes, consensus ranking.
It's been a while since we've had one of these. It's one hell of a comment from OSBP. Where's OSBP? Oh, maybe he's on Patreon as one of us. Shut the frick up. I'd go to Patreon as soon as this moron Brad stops retaking his stick every shift. Oh, my hands are the most important part of my game. Oh, I play semi-pro hockey. You play semi-pro hockey like Donald manages a pandemic. You say you do, but let's be real. Everyone seemed to get sick of me calling all of these guys losers, so I dipped the hell out of this sensitive ass show. I am very sensitive. When I heard that someone was doing a well-being check, well, here I am in the virtual flesh, taking a huge Sunday morning dump. It's been a while since we've had one of these. Who do the Red Wings draft at 4, you ask? How about half-naked Brindamore playing Frisbee since he won't get tossed around like some punk-ass kid? Evan, I've been golfing a lot, starting to shoot mid-80s consistently. Let's go play 18, man. I got a hookup at Butterfield Country Club here in Chicago. Check it out. Brad and Ryan, you are definitely not invited. Yeah, don't invite me unless you want some new pawns on your golf course. It's also funny hearing Brad speak after Frege almost verbatim on certain topics. Wake up, sheeple. Brad sucks. I'm alive. Wish I wasn't. Wish you guys weren't. That's the OSBP we know and love.
That golf course looks unreal, by the way.
I also have to go eat at his restaurant. It's been on Mel and I's list to go to Chicago, like as our next American city that we go to. And we actually were thinking this summer we'd do Chicago and then DC in the fall. And then the world started ending. But hey, if the invite's still open, I'm still down to go. Also, Brad, I'm sorry, you took the heat mostly on that one.
That was
a
passionate
5 minutes ago. I'm being honest. I pulled an Evan here. I was looking at
5 minutes ago. Those are rookie numbers, Brad. Those are rookie numbers. Get those up. 5 minutes. Get those numbers up.
Yeah, I'm browsing stuff on eBay. Leave me alone.
There were some other questions here. There were comments here about trading cap space. I want to get to that one. Oh, Russell 18 says on 31 Thoughts, the pod, they discussed the idea of trading cap space as an asset, provided team hits the cap floor. What do you think of this, and what do you think would be fair value for cap space in a trade? Oh man, we'll give Toronto $4 million for a first.
$4 million for a first seems insane, but with the flat cap, I could see it. And the problem is Toronto doesn't have their first. B, a lot of the teams that are really screwed up against the cap just got booted out of the qualifiers. So are they going to give up a top 15 pick? My guess is no. Who are the teams that are still in it that might make a run that are really screwed against the cap? Vancouver, Tampa,
Arizona,
and they both have Arizona's got, I think they have workable room, though, based on the way they're structured. They're not going to be as screwed, but they don't really have a GM who knows that he's a GM right now. So, yeah, there'll be some options, but the later you get in the first round, I don't know.
Dallas will probably need help, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they don't have a lot coming off the books.
Philly's not going to be in like, they're one of the top spending teams. They don't have a ton coming off the books. So they're losing Justin Braun, who's making 3.8. Jeez.
I was thinking that maybe James Van Riemsdyk would be a good target for a cap dump. He's making $7 million until the end of 22-23.
Yeah.
And he's 31. He might be a decent target to at least get some years out of him.
Wouldn't hate JVR on my hockey team, you know?
Nope.
All right. With that, that's a lot of good content. So we are going to wrap up this episode. We will see you guys again midweek. We'd like to thank everyone for listening. All of you who have been leaving us 5-star reviews on iTunes. Holy shit. We love you. All of our listeners, our Patreon supporters, our name level sponsors of this show, the septic tank of that bitch Carol Baskins, Arjun Shanker, Greach, Jeremiah Dobo, Jake Kiefer, Ovechkin Stan Club, sorry about your team, Brad Smith, Andrew Bohan, Scott Martin, Jacob Turner, Matt McKay, Brandon M., Matthew M. Rice, Luke Johnson, Kalen Wood, Hassam Al-Qassem, Charlie Elkins, Hana Lee, Obeer-Wan Kenobi, who's a brand new name level sponsor. So welcome.
I like that name.
Yeah, great name too. Trevor Pevovar, Alex Ott, Ashley Van Konik, Chris Frank, Connor Leighton, Matthew Keeler, Simon Anderson, Antonio Gracias, John Evans, Quaz, and Stan Olson. Thank you all. I'm going to go sleep forever. See you midweek.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockey Town Evan.